Hello and welcome. I am Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching a special broadcast here on DD India. It's good to see you again. All right, let's get started. Now, over the next 30 minutes, we'll tell you all about the Quad and the Indo-Pacific. Two guests from India and Japan will join me momentarily to help you, the viewer, understand the issues at hand. Now, the Quad is an abbreviation for quadrilateral. It is an informal grouping of four countries: India, Japan, the United States, and Australia. It's no coincidence that all four countries in question are democracies. Now, the Quad promotes what it calls a rules-based order in the wider Indo-Pacific region. If you're wondering what the Indo-Pacific is all about, well, as a geographical entity, the Indo-Pacific straddles two oceans, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. It extends from Japan in the north to Australia and New Zealand in the south, and from the Horn of Africa in the west to the southern Indian Ocean. As a political construct, the Quad and the Indo-Pacific acquired a salience of its own after maritime disputes between China and its neighbors raised tensions in the region. The Indo-Pacific is important from an economic standpoint as well. 1/3 of the world's maritime shipping passes through this region, and this area is believed to be rich in oil and gas reserves. Now, India, like much of the world, sees the Indo-Pacific as a global commons, a part of the Earth's shared resources such as oceans. But China sees it differently. China has built artificial islands in the South China Sea. They also placed military equipment on some of those islands. So militarization of the South China Sea is happening already. And in 2016, the United Nations Arbitration Tribunal ruled against China's maritime claims in the region in a matter brought before it by the Philippines. So political, economic, and security interests intersect in this region. Now, coming back to the Quad, it has an interesting origin. The Quad first came together loosely as a core group of countries in the aftermath of the 2004 tsunami. By 2007, it had held its first official meeting at Manila. But the second Quad meeting did not take place until 2017, again at Manila. Since then, the Quad has met every year. It met twice at Singapore in June 2018 and again at Singapore in November 2018. 2019 saw the Quad getting elevated to the ministerial level. Foreign ministers of all the four Quad countries met at New York City on the margins of the United Nations General Assembly. The same year, that is 2019, officials from the Quad countries met at Bangkok. In October 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Quad foreign ministers met in person at Tokyo, and they held talks most recently on 18th February, only this time they met virtually. Now, one can't talk about the Quad or the Indo-Pacific without talking about Abe Shinzo. Abe Shinzo is a former Prime Minister of Japan. In 2006, before he became Prime Minister, Abe published a book, a manifesto of sorts. It was titled Utsukushi Kunei, or Toward a Beautiful Country. In that book, Abe described India as the most important bilateral relationship in the world. He spoke about India and Australia as partners, and he mooted what he called a values-oriented diplomacy. Abe became Prime Minister in September 2006, and the then Indian Prime Minister visited Tokyo in December that year. The joint statement issued towards the end of their talks spoke about a dialogue with like-minded countries in the Asia-Pacific region. A quick word about the Malabar exercise. The Malabar Naval Exercise started in 1992 as a bilateral naval exercise between India and the US. Japan joined the Malabar exercise in 2015 and Australia in the year 2020. 2007 was a watershed year for the Quad. In April, Phase 1 of the Malabar exercise was held off the coast of Okinawa in Japan. Japan and Singapore joined the navies of India and the US for the exercise. Now, it was the first Malabar exercise to be held outside the Indian Ocean. In May that year, the first Quad meeting took place at Manila in the Philippines. Diplomats from all 4 Quad countries met on the margins of the ASEAN Regional Forum. In August, Abe Shinzo visited India. A highlight of his visit was his address to the Indian legislature. It was titled Confluence of the Two Seas. Abe spoke about the arc of freedom and prosperity. I quote, "By Japan and India coming together in this way, this broader Asia will evolve into an immense network spanning the entirety of the Pacific Ocean, incorporating the United States of America and Australia. Open and transparent, this network will allow people, goods, capital and knowledge to flow freely." Unquote. Abe went on to say, I quote him again, "As this new broader Asia takes shape at the confluence of the two seas of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, I feel that it is imperative that the democratic nations located at opposite edges of these seas deepen the friendship among their citizens at every possible level." Unquote. In September, the second phase of the Malabar exercise was held in the Bay of Bengal. Japan, Australia and Singapore joined the navies of India and the US. The exercise concluded on 9 September and 3 days later, on 12 September, Abe Shinzo resigned. 2008 saw the Quad go into a deep freeze. Australia had a new Prime Minister in Kevin Rudd, who pulled his country out of the Quad. And for the next 10 years, the Quad remained comatose. In 2014, Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister of India. He addressed the East Asia Summit held at New York. In his address, he coined the term Act East. Modi said, I quote, "Since entering office 6 months ago, my government has moved with a great sense of priority and speed to turn our Look East policy into Act East policy." Unquote. The next year, that is 2015, Prime Minister Modi visited Mauritius, where he unveiled India's Sagar policy. He said, I quote him again, "We seek a future for Indian Ocean that lives up to the name of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region." Unquote. 2017 saw the revival of the Quad. Officials from all 4 Quad countries met after a gap of 10 years. Their talks were held at Manila in the Philippines on the margins of the East Asia Summit. Now, some other developments took place parallelly, which I think you, the viewer, should know for a better understanding of the Quad and the Indo-Pacific. The US announced its National Defense Strategy in January 2018. That document followed the National Security Strategy unveiled in December 2017. Also, the US military renamed its Pacific Command as the Indo-Pacific Command. It is a unified combatant command of the US Armed Forces for the Indo-Pacific region. 2018 also saw Prime Minister Modi lay out his vision for the Indo-Pacific in his address to the Shangri-La Dialogue. He said, I quote, "India does not see the Indo-Pacific region as a strategy or as a club of limited members, nor as a grouping that seeks to dominate, and by no means do we consider it as directed against any country. A geographical definition as such cannot be. India's vision for the Indo-Pacific region is therefore a positive one, and it has many elements." Unquote. Now, Modi's vision had 6 broad elements. 1. The region has to be free, open, and inclusive. 2. The centrality of ASEAN was key to the future of the Indo-Pacific. 3. India stood for a rules-based order for the region. 4. India laid emphasis on unimpeded commerce and peaceful settlement of disputes. 5. India pushed for an open and stable international trade regime. And finally, connectivity in the region should be based on respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, which China's Belt and Road Initiative does not espouse. Now, talking about the Quad, 2018 saw the grouping come into its own. The third Quad meeting took place at Singapore in June that year, and Singapore hosted the fourth edition of the Quad in November the same year. 2019 was the year when the Quad raised its profile. The Indian Foreign Ministry created an Indo-Pacific division, and the foreign ministers of all four Quad countries met in New York City. It was the first Quad ministerial meeting. The talks were held on the margins of the United Nations General Assembly. The same year, that is 2019, Prime Minister Modi addressed the East Asia Summit. He launched a new Indian policy called Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. The Quad picked up speed in 2019. The sixth Quad meeting took place at Bangkok. Officials from the Quad countries met on the margins of the East Asia Summit. 2020 was the year of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was also the year when the Quad Plus began to take shape. In March 2020, diplomats from all four Quad countries discussed about the COVID-19 pandemic. Officials from South Korea, Vietnam, and New Zealand took part in it. And a month before the 2020 US election, the Quad met for the seventh time at Japan. It was the second Quad ministerial. The foreign ministers of Quad countries met in person at Tokyo in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that brings me to 18th February 2021, when new US President Joe Biden hit the ground running and took the initiative to call the 8th meeting of the Quad in a virtual mode. It was the third Quad ministerial meeting attended by new US Foreign Minister Antony Blinken, and it was the first such meet under US President Joe Biden. So that, in a nutshell, was a history of the Quad and the Indo-Pacific. Time for a short break. When we come back, I'll have two guests join us for a discussion on this topic. Professor Takenori Horimoto from Japan and Ambassador Vishnu Prakash from India. Keep watching DD India. Don't go anywhere.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back. You're watching a special broadcast here on DD India, and we are discussing about the Quad and the Indo-Pacific. And joining me are two very special guests, Professor Takenori Horimoto from Japan and Ambassador Vishnu Prakash. Professor Horimoto is at the Gifu Women's University in Japan. He is also a former student of Delhi University. And Ambassador Prakash is a former High Commissioner of India to Canada and Ambassador to South Korea. Gentlemen, welcome to this special broadcast. Ambassador Prakash, the first question, the obvious question first, your thoughts on the evolution of the Quad over the years, first under President Trump and now under President Biden in the US, and also in Japan under Prime Minister Abe before, and now under Prime Minister Suga.
Well, greetings, Ramesh. It
Welcome.
is in a way a miracle that the Quad has survived.
Why do you say that?
It was because in 2008, everybody had written the obituary of Quad. But more to do with external circumstances, it was revived in 2017, and that too in 2019 we had the foreign minister ministerial. And not only it has revived, but it has, I can say that it has almost come of age. And President Trump had infused a new life into Quad. So far, and I'm qualifying it a little, so far it would appear that President Biden is as committed to Quad. And later maybe I'll talk about why I am qualifying it. Prime Minister Abe was the person who visualized Quad. I think we all owe him a collective thanks for thinking ahead of his times. And Prime Minister Suga is carrying the concept forward. So the very fact that the three countries have had 3 ministerial meetings on Quad, and the latest within few days of the Biden administration assuming power, is very significant.
How do you or Japan view the evolution of the Quad over these years, starting as a tsunami core group in 2004 and the first Quad summit in 2007, to the revival of the Quad 10 years later in 2017, and Australia joining the Malabar exercises last year in 2020.
Yes, and about the evolution of Quad, there's a first phase is Quad 1.0. That is starting from around 2007. And the Quad second 2.0 starting around 2017. And there's a basic difference between Quad 1.0 and 2.0. And it's really starting from the 2017, that is Quad second. And then it may take some time for it will become more perfect. 10 years has passed, but still many things have to be sorted out.
Indeed. Now, are you satisfied with the progress or growth of the Quad? Is there scope for improvement of the Quad going forward? If so, what would you want to see the Quad do in the months and years ahead?
Yes, very good question. The aspect of growth and scope are interrelated. But one thing is quite clear. What 4 countries want to do something through the Quad. And depending on the 4 countries' will and concrete steps, the measuring of the speed of formation of Quad is different. Such as security cooperation is one of the kind, but still on that stage, many more things has to be done from years on.
We've seen 3 ministerials take place in a very short span of time, but the fact remains that the Quad has not been able to produce a joint statement so far. Why is it so?
Well, that is a very good question, and I have been also thinking about it. First, the positive. Look at the reticence that countries had in even mentioning that there was a meeting like this. I remember that after the first meeting in September 2019 in New York, India did not even issue a press release. Now, there is certainly a slight variance in emphasis. Now, let us look at 2021, the 18th October meeting. Japan has been most vocal in describing its concerns. And it is said upfront that the aggression of China in East Sea or Sea of Japan and South China Sea is a matter of concern. Japan is the only country. So, yet, if you see the amount of commonalities in the press joint state, not in the press releases of all four countries, it is striking. So it is not a question of if, I think it's a question of when, and sooner than later, I would think that we'll start having joint statements.
And Ambassador Prakash, you've served in South Korea, so you have a first-hand experience of looking at these issues from their perspective as well. Now, in March 2020, during the height of the pandemic, we saw the 4 Quad countries invite 3 other countries to a discussion on COVID-19 pandemic: South Korea, Vietnam, and New Zealand. Now, that gave rise to a lot of commentary about enlargement of the Quad to include Quad plus countries, including South Korea for that matter. What are your views on the enlargement of the Quad? Is the time right now, or you think first consolidation followed by enlargement?
Well, let me just add that I have also had the good fortune of serving in China and Japan and Pacific Russia. So one has served in this region and one has been following this region closely. That is just as a matter of detail. Now, I think there should be an organic growth. While there is a sense of urgency, but we cannot force the pace. Let the countries decide on their own. Today, if we were to expand the Quad, or even without expanding it, one country which is very strongly committed, that is France. And you know that in May 2021, that is 2 months from now, for the first time, France will be joining Japan and USA in having a joint military exercises in South China Sea. As far as South Korea is concerned, South Korea has a very strong economic relationship with China and political relationship with the US, but they are very mindful of Chinese sensitivities. And as things stand now, I would think that South Korea will be reluctant to be a part of a Quad or even Quad plus, so to say, but it's an important player, and I think having them on board, consulting, exchanging views, notes from time to time would be in order.
Professor, all 4 Quad countries, India, Japan, the US, and Australia, speak about the centrality of ASEAN to the future of the Indo-Pacific. But many around the world wonder, the ASEAN does not speak with one voice on the issue of Indo-Pacific or issues relating to China for that matter. So how do you look at this emphasis of the centrality of ASEAN to the Indo-Pacific?
Yes, you are very right in pointing out this aspect about the Quad. The ASEAN is indispensable element in the concept of free and open Indo-Pacific. But their mode of decision is consensus, not majority system. And then also there is a sort of difference of temperature among the ASEAN countries towards China. And then this makes very difficult situation, particularly ASEAN countries always thinking in terms of the economic relations with China. So these kind of basic contradictions among the ASEAN countries, situation is quite difficult to call simply as centrality of ASEAN is quite difficult.
What do you make of this emphasis on ASEAN, or to keep ASEAN at the front and center of this dialogue or discourse?
Very pertinent, and that goes to the heart of the issue. We have the Indian Ocean region and we have the Pacific region. What connects the 2 regions? That is the ASEAN region. That's where Malacca Strait is. So it literally is in the middle, in the center of the Indo-Pacific region. And they have said so that in last year or in 2019, when they formally subscribed to the idea of Indo-Pacific, they said that ASEAN is the bridge or the connection. So they may have different viewpoints, which is very natural. I completely agree with you that no ASEAN country wants to pick and choose, fair enough. But everybody wants a free and open, democratic, inclusive Indo-Pacific region. And so it is very much a statement of intent. It's a progressive vision. It's a vision which is in the common interest of every country. And the pace may differ, but I think everybody is on board in terms of the vision, the desire, the need, and this geostrategic threats and challenges that obtain at the moment.
Professor, how would you describe Japan-China relations today under Prime Minister Suga and President Xi Jinping in China? And also, there are a lot of disputes between Japan and China also, including the issue of the Senkaku Islands. And we've seen statements coming out of Tokyo in the last several months about Japan raising concerns about China trying to unilaterally change the status quo in the region. Now, how does Japan look at the increasing possibility of militarization of the South China Sea?
As you may be knowing, the two countries, Japan and China, is closely related in terms of economic relations and political relations and so many things. Moreover, there is a geographical propinquity between the two countries. But recently, as you may be knowing, China has started a very aggressive, proactive policy around the regions. That makes Japan's foreign policy towards China makes more difficult. So under this situation, the militarization of South China Sea, one of the huge issue, not only this area, but surrounding area also, like Senkaku. Japan has to cope with new situation now, but it may take more time. But while time is going on, the China may more aggressive. So in that way, the relation between the two countries becoming more difficult. And one more thing, Taiwan issue also. We have to also take into account this aspect also.
All right, on that note, I want to thank both my guests, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash and Professor Horimoto, for making time to be with us on this special broadcast. Appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
That's a wrap on this special broadcast, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.